We were halfway through a summer road trip when the sun dipped low and painted the sky a bloody orange. The four of us, me, my girlfriend Sarah, and our friends Tyler and Jenna, had been driving all day, chasing cheap roadside attractions and greasy diner food. By nightfall, we were exhausted. We weren't picky about where to sleep. So when we saw a faded wooden sign that read Lake Ridge Campground Vacancy, we decided to pull in. The place was small, tucked off a lonely stretch of highway, the kind of campground that looked like it hadn't seen visitors in years. We parked and paid a sleepy old man at the office, or rather, handed him cash through a cracked window, since the office itself looked abandoned. He barely said a word, just pointed us toward the far end of the lot. That's when we noticed it. Still, none of us could shake the feeling that someone was watching us as we pitched our tent a few sites away. The campground was eerily quiet that night. No other campers, no crackling radios, not even the usual sounds of insects. Just silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of the trees. We built a small fire, roasted marshmallows, tried to laugh it off, but the whole time, that flickering light stayed in the corner of our eyes. Maybe we should go say hi, Jenna suggested. Tyler rolled his eyes. What, knock on some stranger's door at midnight? Yeah, great idea. We all chuckled nervously, but deep down, none of us wanted to get any closer to that camper. By midnight, the fire had burned low, and we crawled into the tent. The nylon walls did little to make me feel safe. In fact, it made everything worse. The thin fabric separated us from the darkness outside, but not from whatever might be in it. I don't know how long I lay awake, staring at the ceiling of the tent, but at some point I heard it. Crunch, the sound of footsteps, slow, heavy, circling at first. I thought maybe it was Tyler sneaking out to mess with us, but then the steps circled again, and again, each pass a little closer. Sarah grabbed my arm. You hear that? Before I could answer, Jenna whispered, it's going around us. The footsteps kept circling, once, twice, then stopping just outside the tent. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. Finally, Tyler, trying to be brave, reached for the zipper. I'll scare them off, he whispered. He tugged it open in one swift motion, and just like that, the footsteps stopped. Silence. Nothing stood outside. Just empty campground, the flickering camper still glowing in the distance. But then I noticed it. The camper door. It was wide open. A hollow rectangle of darkness gaped where the door had been shut all evening. We sat frozen until Sarah begged us to zip the tent back up. Somehow, eventually, sleep came in restless snatches. Have you ever driven down one of those long, forgotten highways, where the only sign of life is the cracked asphalt beneath your tires? That's where I was, miles from anywhere, with the sun bleeding out on the horizon. My car had given up, sputtering to a final, gasping halt. No signal, of course. Just me, the encroaching darkness, and the whisper of the wind through the tall, dry grass. Then, I saw it, tucked away in a small clearing off the road. A vintage, teardrop-shaped camper. It looked like it had been there for decades, but a soft, warm light glowed from its single window. Hope surged through me. Maybe they had a phone, or could give me a lift to the next town. As I got closer, the light inside flickered, just for a second, and in that brief moment of darkness, I could have sworn I saw a face pressed against the glass, its eyes wide, its mouth a perfect, silent O of terror, before the light returned as if nothing had happened. Shaking it off as a trick of the light, I knocked on the thin aluminum door. It creaked open before my knuckles even touched it. Hello, I called out, my voice sounding small and thin. The inside was cozy, but eerily still. A half-eaten meal sat on a small table. A book lay open on a neatly made bed. It was as if someone had just stepped out for a moment. I called out again, louder this time. The only reply was a sudden, sharp rap against the camper's roof from outside, making me jump out of my skin. I peeked out the window, my heart hammering against my ribs. Nothing. Just the wind and the deepening twilight. I decided to wait inside. It was better than being out in the open. As my eyes adjusted, I noticed something odd. On the wall, above the small kitchenette, were dozens of small framed photographs, but they weren't of smiling families or scenic landscapes. They were all pictures of broken down cars, each one eerily similar to mine, all taken on this very stretch of road. My car wasn't among them yet. A floorboard groaned behind me. I spun around, but the camper was empty. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating. Then, a soft, Rhythmic scratching started from underneath the floor. Scratch, scrape, scratch. It was slow, deliberate, like fingernails dragging across wood. I backed away, my eyes wide, fixed on the floorboards as if something might burst through at any second. The scratching stopped. The camper door, which I had left slightly ajar, slammed shut with a deafening bang, plunging the entire space into absolute, terrifying blackness. I fumbled for my phone, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold it. The flashlight beam cut through the darkness, darting around the small space. Everything was as it was, but the air was thick with a new, cold presence. The framed photos were gone. In their place was a single, large, unframed photograph, newly pinned to the wall. My hands trembled as I aimed the light at it. It was a picture of my car, sitting dead on the roadside. But in the driver's seat, where I should have been, was a shadowy figure, and standing beside it, a pale hand resting on the roof, was someone who looked exactly like me, smiling a smile that didn't reach their cold, empty eyes. The summer of 2005 was one of the hottest I can remember. The air itself felt heavy, like you had to push it aside just to breathe. Every day the news warned of record-breaking heat, blackouts, and people collapsing in the streets. So when my family decided to rent a remote cabin for a week, to escape the city and relax, I wasn't exactly thrilled. The cabin sat deep in the woods, miles from the nearest town. No neighbors, no passing cars, just cicadas screaming in the trees and the low hum of heat pressing down on everything. At first, it seemed fine, rustic, but charming. A creaky porch, a stone chimney, wood-paneled walls, the kind of place you'd see on a postcard. But the heat followed us. Even with all the windows open, the air inside the cabin was stifling. By nightfall, we were dripping with sweat, too uncomfortable to even move. Then, just before midnight, the power cut out. The ceiling fan above my bed slowed to a stop. The single lamp on the nightstand flickered and died. Suddenly, we were swallowed by complete darkness. No hum of electricity, no air circulation, just silence. I lay awake on the bed, sheets sticking to my skin, listening to my own heartbeat. That's when I heard it. Kriak. At first I thought it was the old cabin settling, wood expanding in the heat, but then came another, and another. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, moving across the living room floor. I held my breath, straining to listen. The sound grew closer, boards whining under weight, step by step. Thinking it was my brother wandering the house, I whispered, "Hey, is that you?" No answer. The footsteps stopped, right outside my bedroom door. I stared into the darkness, every nerve in my body screaming. My throat felt too dry to call out again. The doorknob never turned, the door never opened. Just silence. At some point, exhaustion won, my eyes burned, and I must have drifted into a shallow, restless sleep. By morning, the power was still out, and the cabin was hotter than ever. My brother stumbled out of his bed, hair plastered to his forehead with sweat. "You were up walking around last night, weren't you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He frowned. "No, I didn't move. I couldn't even sleep, it was too hot. I just lay there the whole time." My stomach dropped. We went to check the hallway outside my door, and that's when I saw it. The layer of dust covering the wooden floor had been disturbed. Clear, undeniable footprints trailed right up to my bedroom door, and stopped there. They weren't mine. They weren't my brother's. They weren't anyone's I could explain. The rest of the trip blurred into unease. Every night, the same routine. Silence, suffocating heat, then the creak of footsteps in the darkness. Always approaching my door, always stopping just outside. On the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I stayed awake, staring at the door, sweat dripping down my temples, waiting. When the sound came again, kriak, kriak, I forced myself to look. Through the thin strip of moonlight seeping beneath the door, I saw them, shadows, feet, standing there, motionless. I wanted to scream, but no sound left my throat. My body locked up, paralyzed with terror. I blinked, and when I opened my eyes again, the shadows were gone. We cut the trip short after that. My parents blamed the heat wave, said the cabin wasn't worth the discomfort. But I knew it wasn't just the heat. Something else was in that cabin. Something that walked at night, barefoot, silent, drawn to the doors of those still awake. And sometimes, when summer nights are too hot to sleep, when the air is heavy and the floor creaks in the dark, I swear I hear it again. Those slow, deliberate footsteps. Coming closer, always closer. The woods always held a strange quiet. But tonight, it's different. A suffocating heat presses down, and the silence isn't peaceful. It's waiting. You see, I thought a week away, just me in this old cabin, would be the perfect escape. A break from the city noise, the constant rush. But as the sun bled out of the sky, leaving just a bruised, purple twilight, I started to realize I wasn't escaping something. I was walking right into it. The air inside this cabin is thick, heavy, like it's been holding its breath for 100 years. And out there, in the deep, dark woods, something is watching. I can feel it, a prickle on my skin that has nothing to do with the heat. My grandfather built this place with his own hands. He used to tell me stories about it, his eyes twinkling. He called it his sanctuary, but he always left one part out. He never told me what he was taking sanctuary from asterisk. Now, I think I know. The floorboards creak under my feet, each step echoing in the oppressive stillness. The heat wave is relentless, making the old woods sweat and groan, as if the cabin itself is in pain. I've tried to open the windows, but they're swollen shut, trapping the stale, hot air inside with me. It feels less like a shelter and more like a cage. Outside, the cicadas have stopped their buzzing. That's what's wrong. The usual night sounds are gone, replaced by this listening silence. I decided to distract myself, to go through some of Grandpa's old things packed away in a dusty trunk. I thought it might bring some comfort, some connection to the man I remembered. I found old photos, faded letters, a whittled bird. But then my fingers brushed against a small leather-bound journal. His handwriting was shaky, frantic. It wasn't the strong, steady script I knew. The entries started normally, describing the birds, the weather, but then they changed. He wrote about the heat, this same suffocating heat. He wrote about the thirst in the woods. He said the trees themselves seemed to lean in closer at night, their branches like skeletal fingers. He described a shape, a shadow that moved just at the edge of his vision, something that didn't belong. He said it was drawn by the heat, awakened by it. A sudden, sharp scratching sound at the door jolts me back to the present. My heart hammers against my ribs. It's not an animal, it's deliberate, slow. Asterisk, scrape, 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 asterisk. It sounds like fingernails dragging down the wood. I'm frozen, staring at the door, the old bolt, the only thing between me and whatever is out there. Grandpa's last entry flashes in my mind. He wrote, "It wants in, it always wants in. Don't let the heat fool you. It's not the sun you should be afraid of." The scratching stops. The silence that follows is somehow worse. I hold my breath, listening, and then a new sound begins. A soft, gentle tapping. Not on the door this time. It's coming from the window right behind me. I can't bring myself to turn around. I can see its reflection, distorted in the dark glass of the old television screen across the room. It's tall, impossibly thin, its form wavering in the heat haze like a mirage. But it's no mirage, it's real. The tapping gets more insistent, a rhythmic asterisk tap, tap, tap asterisk that seems to say, "I know you're in there. I can wait." The heat is no longer just uncomfortable, it feels predatory. It's as if the creature out there is feeding on it, growing stronger with every degree. The sanctuary has become a trap, and the heat wave isn't just a weather event, it's a hunting ground, and tonight, I am the prey. The tapping on the glass stops, and a low, guttural whisper slithers through a crack in the window frame. It says my name. It was the summer of 1998, the hottest one I can remember. The kind of summer where the air felt heavy, where cicadas droned endlessly in the trees, and the nights carried a strange electric silence, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. My cousin Daniel had come to stay with me for a few weeks. He was a year older, louder, braver, or at least he liked to act that way. We spent most of our days biking through back roads, sneaking sodas from the gas station, and exploring the woods near my house. But no matter what we did, the lake always called to us. Miller's Lake. It wasn't the biggest lake around, but it had a reputation. Old folks in town used to whisper that people had drowned there, though they never said much beyond that. Fishermen swore their lines would get snagged on something far too deep to be a log. And kids at school, well, they said it was haunted. A place where something waited just beneath the surface. Daniel didn't believe in any of that. He thought the stories were just to scare kids away from swimming too far. But me, I'd always felt uneasy there. The water was dark, never clear, and even on the hottest days, the lake seemed unnaturally cold. One afternoon, Daniel looked at me with a grin and said, "Bet you can't swim across it." I laughed nervously. "It's deeper than it looks. Come on, what are you scared of? It's just water." And before I could answer, he was already splashing in, daring me to follow. The sun blazed overhead, the water lapped cool against my skin, and for a while, it almost felt fun. We swam side by side, racing, laughing, our arms cutting through the surface. But halfway across, that's when it happened. Something cold brushed my ankle. I stopped, treading water, heart pounding. "Did you touch me?" I called out to Daniel. He just shook his head. "Quit freaking out." I told myself it was weeds, maybe a branch drifting under the surface. I kicked harder, but then it wrapped around me, tight. My stomach dropped. I looked down, and that's when I saw it. A pale hand. White, bloated, fingers swollen as if they had been underwater for years. It was reaching up, clutching my ankle, pulling me down. I screamed, thrashing, bubbles exploding from my mouth as I sank. Water filled my nose, my throat burned. I clawed at the surface, kicking wildly, but the grip only tightened. Just when I thought I'd black out, Daniel grabbed my arm. "Hold on," he shouted, pulling me with everything he had. I broke the surface, gasping, coughing up lake water. Daniel dragged me back to shore, my body shaking, my lungs burning. We collapsed on the grass, the world spinning. "What the hell happened?" he asked, his face pale. I don't know," I stammered. Something grabbed me. There was nothing there. He insisted. "You were just panicking," but I knew. I had seen it, that hand, that face, just beneath the surface, its eyes wide and staring, its mouth open as if screaming silently from the water. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the weight of water pressing down, pulling me deeper. I dreamed of sinking, of hands wrapping around me, dragging me into darkness. The next morning, I tried to tell my mum, but she brushed it off as a bad dream. Daniel, of course, laughed and teased me, but I could see it in his eyes. He was shaken, too. Still, he wanted to prove he wasn't scared. A few days later, he said we should go back. "No way," I told him. "Not after what happened." "Then I'll go alone," he said, and he did. I sat on the shore, hugging my knees, watching as he waded into the lake. The water rippled around him, calm, almost inviting. He swam confidently, gliding across, until he was halfway out, the exact same spot where it had happened to me. And then he stopped. He looked around, confused, treading water. I saw his face twist, his eyes widen, his arms started flailing. He thrashed, kicked, gasped for air. "Daniel!" I screamed. I sprinted into the water, splashing frantically, but I couldn't get to him in time. Something yanked him down, hard. For one terrible second, his hand shot out of the water, reaching, desperate, and then he was gone. The lake went still. By the time they pulled him out, it was too late. The doctors called it drowning. The police said he must have cramped up, panicked. Nobody believed me when I said the lake had taken him, that something in the water had pulled him under, the same way it had tried to take me. Years have passed since that summer, but I've never gone back. I still hear the lake in my dreams. I still feel that hand on my ankle. And every summer, without fail, I dream of Daniel's face, pale, bloated, his eyes wide, his mouth opening and closing, as though he's still down there, waiting for me to return. Have you ever felt a chill run down your spine, not from the cold, but from a place that just feels wrong? Deep in the forgotten woods lies Lake Alistair, a place with a dark, watery secret. Locals whisper that the lake doesn't just drown its victims, it keeps them. Legend says that on moonless nights, you can see their faces just below the surface, their eyes wide open, forever trapped in the murky depths. They say the lake calls to you, a sweet, mournful song that promises peace, but delivers only an eternity of cold silence. It's been decades since anyone dared to swim in its waters, but the stories persist, a grim reminder that some places never let go of their dead. What really happens when you answer the lake's call? You're about to find out. Stay tuned, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Ominous, slow-building music begins. With the sound of gentle waves lapping, have you ever looked at the still surface of a lake and felt like something was looking back? For the locals near Lake Anatok, that feeling is a constant, chilling companion. They call it the lake that never let go, a name whispered with a mixture of fear and reverence. This isn't just a body of water. It's a place of secrets, a watery abyss that holds more than just a reflection of the sky. Stories have been passed down for generations. They tell of boats found adrift, their occupants vanished without a trace. They speak of strange, shimmering lights dancing beneath the waves on moonless nights, and a feeling, a heavy, palpable presence that pulls at your ankles the moment you step into the water. Old photographs show smiling faces on the shore, faces that were never seen again. They say the lake claims people, pulling them down into its cold, silent depths. In 1978, a group of 4 experienced divers decided to map the lake's bottom, dismissing the local legends as folklore. They were equipped with the best gear of the time, tethered by safety lines, and in constant communication, but one by one, their radios went silent. The first diver reported seeing what looked like drowned stars on the lake bed. The second screamed about a pressure, a force pulling him down, even as his depth gauge remained steady. The last transmission was a single, terrified word: "It's not water." A massive search operation was launched, but all they ever found was a single, severed safety line, floating on the surface. What is it about Lake Talk? Geologists say it's unusually deep, an anomaly with strange underwater currents. But the locals know the truth is far more sinister. They believe an ancient entity slumbers in its depths, something that hungers, something that remembers. They've found strange artifacts washed ashore, carved stones with symbols unlike any known language, and objects that seem to defy time, perfectly preserved as if they were lost only yesterday, not centuries ago. Children are warned never to swim alone, and fishermen cast their lines with one eye always on the shore, ready to flee. Could it be an undiscovered aquatic species, a geological phenomenon we don't understand, or is it something else entirely? Something ancient and intelligent, watching us from below. The one thing everyone agrees on is this: once you enter its waters, the lake decides if you can leave. It has a memory, and it has a will. To this day, the mysteries of Lake Anatok remain unsolved, its dark waters holding their secrets tight. The lake is patient, it watches, and it waits. Thank you for diving into this mystery with us. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more chilling tales. Stay curious, and stay safe. The summer before 9th grade, I had to take summer school at our old middle school. Most kids hated it because the building was ancient, cracked tiles, buzzing fluorescent lights, and long empty hallways that echoed your footsteps. Classes ended by noon, and by then the place was almost deserted. Only a few teachers and janitors stayed behind. That emptiness always gave me chills. One day I stayed late, finishing an assignment in the library. By the time I packed up, the halls were silent. My footsteps echoed way too loud, bouncing back at me as I made my way toward the exit. That's when I heard it. A locker door slamming shut. It came from the far end of the hall where the lights flickered and half the lockers hadn't been used in years. I froze, telling myself it was just a janitor, but when I called out hello, no one answered. I walked faster. That's when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A boy, he stood at the end of the hallway, head down, wearing an old, outdated school uniform, the kind our school hadn't used in decades. His hair was dripping wet, like he had just climbed out of a pool. I blinked, and he was gone. Terrified, I sprinted for the doors, but when I grabbed the handle, it wouldn't budge. Stuck. Behind me, footsteps echoed, not walking, but running, fast. I turned, heart hammering, but the hallway was empty. Finally, the door gave way, and I burst out into the blinding summer sunlight. Later, I asked one of the janitors about it. He got real quiet and finally said, "Years ago, a boy drowned in the school's swimming pool during summer practice. Some say he never left." I never stayed late. Again, video opens with a quick montage of eerie, distorted photos of an old, empty school building at dusk. A flickering light effect is applied. Quick cuts between empty hallways, a single chair in a classroom, and a blurry figure seen through a window. Is summer school supposed to be this spooky? I mean, think about it. The long empty hallways that are usually buzzing with life, now silent. The classrooms, once filled with chatter and laughter, now just echoes of the past. Most students dread summer school because it means giving up their vacation. But for me, it wasn't the extra homework I was worried about. It was the feeling that we weren't entirely alone. What started as a boring summer turned into the most terrifying experience of my life. All thanks to the ghost that haunted our summer school. Scene transitions to a slightly brighter, but still moody, shot of the school's exterior during the day. It all started during the first week. Our class was held in the oldest wing of the school, a part that was usually closed off during the regular school year. The building had this heavy, oppressive atmosphere. You know, the air was always cold, even on the hottest July days. At first it was just small things, a book falling off a shelf when no one was near it, the faint sound of a locker slamming shut down the hall. We all just brushed it off. Old building, creaky pipes, drafts. We had an excuse for everything. Our teacher, Mr. Harrison, was a history buff and loved telling us about the school's long past. He mentioned that the wing we were in was the original schoolhouse, built over a century ago. He'd joke about the ghosts of students past who didn't pass their exams. We all laughed, but his jokes felt a little too real in those chilly classrooms. The whispers started among the students. People would say they saw shadows moving in the corners of their eyes or heard faint crying coming from the girls' restroom at the end of the hall. The creepy little incidents started to escalate. One afternoon, while we were all working quietly on an assignment, the old intercom system crackled to life. It was just static at first. But then, a voice. It was distorted, like an old radio broadcast, and it whispered a single name, Eleanor. We all froze and looked at each other. Mr. Harrison tried to play it cool, saying it was probably just radio interference, but you could see the color drain from his face. Nobody in our class was named Eleanor. That's when I decided to do some digging. I spent my lunch break in the school library, looking through old yearbooks and town records, and that's when I found her, Eleanor Vance, a student from 1928. Her picture showed a girl with sad eyes and a shy smile. According to the record, she had fallen ill during the summer session and passed away in the nurse's office, the very room that was now being used as our classroom. A shiver went down my spine, so cold it felt like ice. The next day, things got worse. The classroom door, a heavy wooden thing that was always propped open, slammed shut with incredible force, trapping us inside. The lights flickered and went out, plunging us into near darkness. Panic set in. Kids started screaming. Through the chaos we heard it again, that same whisper from the intercom, but this time it was all around us, in the room itself. "Help me," it cried. It was a sound of pure despair. We were terrified, banging on the door, yelling for help. After what felt like an eternity, the lights came back on, and the door creaked open on its own. We all ran out of there, vowing never to return. The summer school session was moved to the new building the very next day. They said it was because of faulty wiring, but we all knew the real reason. We had met Eleanor. I don't think she was trying to hurt us. I think she was just lonely, a lost soul trapped within those walls, replaying her final, tragic summer. Sometimes, when I drive past that old school building, I can't help but look up at the window of our old classroom, and I swear, just for a second, I can see a faint silhouette of a girl just standing there, watching, forever a student of the summer school. Thanks for watching our spooky story. If you've ever had a paranormal experience at school,